As I scrolled through my feed on Blue Sky today, I noticed some brilliant 4 photos of the year selections as photographers shared their trophy shots from 2024. I'm not very organised with my social media posts, as you might know if you follow my sporadic uploads, and I forgot to do my year upload anywhere. But it was still 2024, and so I fired up the Lightroom and began to pick out my best shots of the year. But as I flicked through my favourites, I landed on a personal image which shouldn't have been in that main landscape photography catalogue. As a photograph, it had no great artistic merit at all, but that image transported me back in time instantly to that moment. The thought hit me that in an era of fakery, deception and artificiality, this ability to transport us somewhere and sometime else is why real photography will never die. I took some photographs that I am proud of in 2024. Sunrises, sunsets, cityscapes, mountain ranges, waterfalls, rainbows, forests, beaches. I got about a bit. There's a difference between those photographs taken for largely artistic purposes and the others that I took for non-artistic purposes, but photographs often refuse to be confined to a single purpose. They often stretch beyond their original intent. Shots I took for artistic purposes can also have emotional resonances for me, and shots I took without creative intentions can be artistic. So instead of blowing smoke up my own arse, bigging up my back catalogue, I thought I'd do things a bit differently this year. As the new year kicks off, I'd like to explore the multifaceted nature of photography, its supernatural ability to reflect our real selves and our real lives, whatever the original purpose of a photograph was. The 4 photographs of 2024 that I picked out for this little video are personal to me, but the themes are fundamentally universal, and all, I hope, speak to the power of photography. It starts a bit dark, but it gets lighter. This is the last photograph I took of my dad. There is always going to be a last photograph of all of us, but of course we rarely know which one it's going to be in advance. My dad fell over in the kitchen and snapped the tibia in his right leg, and this, in the photo, was the moment when the ambos were trying to get him up and onto the stretcher so they could take him off to hospital. I took the photo because my dad was always buggering himself up in one way or another, and this image was going to be one of those jokey Facebook posts about how he'd done it again, and the photo would have come up again in a year's time on Facebook, and we'd all joke about it and say what a wally he was and how he really ought to wrap himself in bubble wrap when he went down to the shops for a pint of milk. But due to the sort of complications that are so common for the elderly in hospital, despite being in otherwise decent physical and mental health, he died just 7 days after I took this photo. This photograph, to me, is a reminder of the fleeting nature of permanence. We all know how it ends, and yet we also don't think that it ever will. It's the same willing suspension of disbelief we utilise when we're watching a movie. And when those pivotal moments do arrive, we live through them in third-person mode, like a character in an open-world PC game, looking over our own heads as the events unfold in front of us. The power of this photograph, to me, is that it lands me very much in that moment, not detached from it, but simply present. It seems like a couple of decades ago and 5 minutes ago at one and the same time. It's one of those photographs that could have just been any ordinary shot, a regular attendee in a Facebook memories feed, but it turned out that fate had bigger plans for it. My wife Catherine, myself and our son Josh went on a trip to Europe that had been 2 years in the planning. You know the saying, don't you? If you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. My trip to Europe unfolded like planes, trains and automobiles.
Buick, 4 fucking wheels and a seat.
And this photograph was taken when I'd finally made it out the other side. Having left home at 3 a.m, we arrived at Sydney Airport for our early morning flight to Paris, and having checked our luggage in, we proceeded to the world-famous Border Force security check-in. Catherine went through, Josh went through, but after a bit of to and fro, I was led away with a hand on the shoulder, taken to a little holding area and told that my passport had been cancelled. 6 months previously, my details had been in a big banking hack and the Australian government cancelled my passport. I knew this, of course. The government are wankers, but they did at least email me. So I got a replacement at my own bloody expense with plenty of time to spare. But can you guess which passport I accidentally took with me to the airport? After sending Catherine and Josh on their way, I drove 2 hours back home in order to try and find the new passport because actually I couldn't remember where the hell I put it. After scaring the ever-loving shit out of my sister, who was house-sitting, and then miraculously finding the passport wedged in between books on a bookshelf, don't ask, and after a tense phone call to our travel agents, I managed to get a seat on that same evening's Emirates late-night flight to Paris. I don't sleep well on planes. I mean, who does? But by the time I got to my Parisian hotel, I'd been mostly awake for about 40 hours. Josh and Catherine were out exploring Paris, so I dumped my bags in the hotel room, walked across the street, and at a glorious celebratory cafe au lait in a little cafe. I haven't had a cigarette for 15 years now, but as all ex-smokers will attest, it's a bloody strong temptation at moments like that. I sent this photo to Catherine to let her know that I had arrived. And every time I look at this photo, I am transported back to the way I felt when I'd finally made good on my fuck up. I've lived in 3 places for extended periods of time: North London, South Coast New South Wales and Bath. I finished my college degree in London, and the same week I moved to Bath to start my dream job writing on a computer magazine at Future Publishing. One day, about a year after I'd moved to Bath, I was leaving the gym, hurrying back to the office, when a young lady walking the other way caught my eye as we passed each other in the street. The universe paused briefly, and we both looked directly at each other and we both smiled. It was a definite moment. 5 years after the universe brought us together, I married that girl at Bath Registry Office, and 27 years later, we are still together. And this photo was taken at the precise location where the planets aligned some 33 years earlier. Our son Josh said he felt a connection to the location too, and thanked us both for walking down that Bath back street all those years ago, but he did ask us to spare him the soppy romantic bullshit. We moved to South Coast New South Wales in 2005, and not long after we'd settled in, began exploring the area on hikes and walks. There's a lovely quiet country lane just outside Bury, which is much favoured with early morning exercisers, cyclists and dog walkers, and which was a very short walk from our house. The very first time that Catherine and I did that walk, we were thrilled to discover a wombat sniffing the morning air just outside its burrow. We stopped, spent a bit of time with that young wombat, just observing from a distance, watching it doing its thing, but we carried on with our walk. We returned the next day, hoping to see the wombat again, but he was taking care of his important wombat business elsewhere. We did that walk on a very regular basis, often several times a week, for the next 19 years, and in all that time, we never saw a single other wombat. Kangaroos, wallabies, echidnas, foxes, deers and eagles, yes. Wombats, no. Then, the day before we moved out of the house in Bury, which was being sold after the aforementioned death of my father, we decided to do our morning exercise routine and that nearby walk one last time. And that was the second time in all those 19 years that we saw a wombat on that walk. It was exactly the same burrow, but it was obviously a new tenant. So we stayed a little while with him, took a few photos for posterity, and headed back to the car, feeling like we'd come full circle. The rise of synthetic imagery hasn't diminished photography, it has actually revealed its true worth. In AI, subjects can be faked, the scenarios can be staged, but real photographs, whatever the intent behind their origins, still makes us feel our own lives. Real photographs are splinters of time that bring us back to who we were, who we are, and who we've become. They aren't just images, they're portals to a lived experience. As we begin 2025, we found ourselves knee deep in the synthetic, but that's okay. All those fabricated pseudo photos serve as an important reminder. It's not the technical perfection of our images, artistic or otherwise, but their power to keep our real moments alive. I wish you and those closest to you a joyful, rewarding and healthy 2025. I greatly appreciate all of your support over the last year and look forward to another full year of photo, video and drone related content. Hit the subscribe button to ensure you don't miss out on my sarcastic critiques of software, profanity-laden opinion pieces, and landscape photography expeditions out here in beautiful Australia. Till the next time, guys. Ta-ta.